Before you can create a product change case, you must create at least one case category that you will assign to the product change cases. On the case category, you can enable validation rules to make sure that the information in the case is complete and consistent. For each validation rule, you can specify whether a violation will cause an error message or a warning. An error message must be addressed before a new user can close the case. Warning messages do not prevent a user from closing a case. Let's open AX and take a look. To create a new case category, we'll open the Organization Administration module. Then we'll go to Setup, Cases, and then Case Categories. Here, you'll notice that there's a new node in AX 2012 R3 called Product Change. To create a new case category for product change cases, you'll want to add a node underneath this subnode, so it's important that you highlight this before clicking the New button. Then you'll select Case Category from the list. For this example, I'll say that it's called for BOM changes, so I'll name the category BOM, and then in the description, I'll type out BOM changes. In the category type field, it's automatically linked to the product change category that I selected. Next, you can optionally define who the default owner and department will be. These can be used in the workflow to configure how the case will work. On the right-hand side, you can configure an email template or questionnaire that will be linked to this particular category. You can also use case processes with product change cases and specify service level agreements. For more information about how to configure and use these particular features, you can refer to the online help. On the Activities tab, you can see the details of whether or not an activity and follow-up activity should be created automatically for the case. Activities allow you to track certain information and create reminders for tasks to be completed. If the Create Activity for Case is configured as No, the system will not automatically create an activity. However, you can still manually create a new activity for the case. If it's set to Yes, then AX will create a case automatically. If you choose Prompt or Advanced Prompt, the user will receive a dialog box asking if they would like to add an activity to the case. You can also choose the same options for a follow-up activity. Typically, a follow-up activity will occur at some point in the future. Next, on the Validation Rules tab, you can specify the validation rules. The validation rules are only existent for the product change case. If you create a category in one of the other nodes, such as General or Sales, for example, this tab will not appear. You'll notice that by default, all of the validation rules are enabled. These validation rules are pre-built into AX and cannot be changed unless you want to do some development work. For each validation rule, you'll mark the enabled checkbox if you want to use it, and then select the error level. You can choose Information, Warning, or Error. Warning will display a message box with the yellow icon to indicate that this is not the suggested behavior. Error will prevent the user from processing and closing the case. You'll want to review each one carefully to decide what you want to require with a particular case category. The product change case is a central location for documenting one or more changes to a product. You can create a product change case and then associate entities, or create a product change case directly from the form for an entity, such as the product or BOM form. The entities that you associate with the case are either the cause of the change or the entities that are affected by the change. When you create a product change case from the form for an entity, the entity is automatically associated with the case. Additionally, when you create a product change case for a released product, the related product is automatically associated. If needed, you can remove the associations. For example, if you create a case from the BOM form, the BOM is automatically added as an association. You can use any of the Create Case buttons in the system to create a product change case. However, associations are not created automatically, and you will need to manually create the associations. Let's switch over to AX, and I'll show you how to do this. For my example, I'll create a new product change case from Product Information Management and then the Released Products form. Here, I'll select the item that has the bill of material on it that I want to create a new case for. I'll select this mid-range speaker too. Then, on the Engineer tab in the Action pane, I'll click the Lines button to open up the BOM. Here, you'll notice that there is a Product Change button to the right. Quickly, I want to point out that if you create a case by using one of these buttons here, it's also possible that the system will automatically create and associate the BOM directly to the product. For my example, I'm going to do it from the BOM Lines form. So I'll go back into Lines and then click Product Change and select Create Case. This will generate a new case, so the case dialog will open. You'll need to select the case category. In this case, you're only presented with the product change cases. I'll select the new BOM category that we just created. You can type in a description and assign a priority to this case. You get to create the priorities in the Organization Administration module. Also, you can link a case to another case in the Parent Case field. If you expand the Other tab, you can see the department, employee, service level, and case process. These are defaulted based on the category that you chose. These values can always be overridden on a case-by-case basis. Next, on the case log, we can enter the details. So I'll type in a description and then click Create. Here, you can see the details of the case that we just created. If you need to update the information, you'll need to click Edit in the Maintain group of the Action pane. You can add primary contact information, departments, and employees that are responsible. If follow-ups were required, the follow-up information would be populated. If you scroll down, you'll notice that there's a large note field where you can type in additional notes about this. So if I've been contacted by the vendor, I might want to type some notes about the vendor's conversation and keep track of any information about the new items that will be replacing the old item that's no longer available. I'll also show you that if we go down to the Associations tab, an association has automatically been created. So here you can see that this particular case is automatically linked to the BOM or formula that I created it for. You can add associations by clicking the Add button. So for my example, I'll go ahead and add a relationship to the product. I'll do this by selecting Item in the list, and then in the ID column, I'll select the item ID that we created this case for. Now that I've created the link, I can use the product change case buttons on the item to view this particular case. Let me quickly show that to you. I'll close this window and go back to the Released Products form. So here I am on the product. If I click on the All Cases button, I'll be able to see the case that we just created because I associated that particular case to this particular item. You'll also be able to see this case from the Home module or from the Bill of Material lines. Anytime you add an association, the related form for that entity that you made the relationship form will be visible when you click on the View Cases button in that form. Join me in the next lesson and we'll discuss more about how you can change and update the information on a product change case.